Most people think the ultimate flex of wealth is buying a mansion. But true wealth doesn't just buy a house, it buys the geography underneath it. In the real estate world, a private island is the most restrictive, exclusive, and misunderstood market on the planet. Everyone pictures the white sand and the clear water, but nobody pictures the diesel barges, the rusted generators, or the subsea fiber optic cables. There is a massive invisible gap between owning a rock with a cabin on it and owning a sovereign piece of land with its own power grid, local economy, and international airspace. One guy is paying $50,000 a year just to keep his beach from washing away in the winter storms. Another guy is spending $300 million to buy out an entire local population so he can control the local ferry system. Both technically own islands. Only one owns a world. Today, we are breaking down the 7 levels of private island ownership. From the entry-level rocks in a freezing lake that bankrupt first-time buyers, to the artificial sovereign mega-islands built by royalty. Let's get into it. Level 1. The rented illusion. This is where the dream starts, and for the smartest people in the room, it's exactly where it ends. This isn't ownership, it's access. The tech founder who just sold his first mid-level startup doesn't actually buy an island. He rents one for a week to see how it feels. For $50,000 to $150,000 a week, you can rent places like Sir Richard Branson's Necker Island or David Copperfield's Musha Cay. At this level, you are paying for an illusion of total control. You get the pristine beaches, a staff of 30 people who know your name before you arrive, Michelin star chefs, and a fleet of jet skis perfectly lined up on the dock. But here is the secret of Level 1. It is the smartest financial move on this entire list. Why? Because you don't have to deal with the reality of marine maintenance. When you rent, you don't care that the reverse osmosis desalination plant broke down on Tuesday. You don't care that a hurricane ripped the roof off the staff quarters, or that the insurance premium just tripled because of rising sea levels. You pay for the paradise, you take the photos, and you leave before the maintenance bill arrives. The people who refuse to stay at Level 1 usually end up learning a very expensive lesson at Level 2. Level 2, the raw asset. This is where actual ownership begins, and it is almost always a disaster. You can actually buy a small, undeveloped private island in places like Nova Scotia, Belize, or a cold lake in Northern Europe for under $500,000. It sounds like a steal. It's the price of a small condo in a major city, but you get an entire island. But this is where the brutal math of offshore logistics kicks in. You didn't buy a vacation home, you bought a rock with trees on it. There is no power, there is no fresh water, there is no internet, and most importantly, there is no dock. The people who buy these are usually romanticizing the idea of an off-grid cabin, but then they start trying to build. A standard wooden dock capable of handling construction barges can easily cost $150,000 to build because you have to drive pylons into the bedrock underwater. Shipping basic building materials, lumber, concrete, drywall, costs 3 to 5 times more because everything has to be loaded onto a commercial barge, sailed out to your rock, and manually carried on shore. Want electricity? You need a heavy-duty diesel generator. But how do you get diesel? You have to pay a specialized boat to deliver fuel to your island once a month. At Level 2, you are not a billionaire enjoying a cocktail. You are a part-time logistics manager trying to keep a campsite from sinking. Level 3, the turnkey retreat. This is the sweet spot for the high-net-worth individual who values time over everything. We are talking purchase prices between $5 million and $15 million. This is the classic Bahamas or Fiji island. At this level, the heavy lifting is already done by the previous owner. The island has a functional deep-water dock, a main villa that can withstand a Category 4 hurricane, and basic staff quarters. It has a reliable microgrid, usually a hybrid mix of commercial solar panels and backup diesel generators. But Level 3 introduces a new nightmare. The salt tax. The ocean is actively trying to destroy everything you build. Saltwater corrosion means you aren't just doing standard home maintenance. You are replacing industrial air conditioning units every 2 to 3 years. Stainless steel hinges rust. Wood rots. To keep a $10 million island running, you need a full-time, year-round caretaker. You aren't just paying for their salary. You are paying to house them, feed them, and provide their medical transport if they get hurt on the job. The quiet hedge fund manager who owns a level 3 island doesn't want a massive resort. He just wants a place where his family can vanish for 3 weeks in December without seeing another human being. But to get those 3 weeks of silence, he pays about $500,000 a year in pure operational burn rate. Level 4. The commercial hub. At this level, the island becomes too expensive to just sit empty for 11 months a year. The infrastructure is too massive, the staff is too large, and the tax burden is too high. So the island transitions from a private home into a business. Values here range from $40 million to $100 million. Think of Dietrich Mateschitz, the late co-founder of Red Bull, who bought Laukala Island in Fiji. At this stage, the infrastructure is industrial. The island has a massive commercial desalination plant turning seawater into millions of gallons of drinking water. It has its own farm for fresh produce, a submarine, and an FAA-approved airstrip capable of landing mid-sized private jets. When the billionaire owner isn't using it, the island operates as an ultra-exclusive, invite-only resort. Guests pay anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 a night. But make no mistake, this isn't usually done to turn a massive profit. It's a break-even strategy. The owner's goal is to have the commercial guests subsidize the $4 million to $8 million annual upkeep. The island pays for itself, keeping the asset on the billionaire's balance sheet without bleeding cash. Level 5. The corporate fiefdom. Level 5 is where we leave traditional real estate behind and enter the realm of localized monopolies. This isn't just buying an island, it is buying a functioning society. The perfect example is billionaire Larry Ellison, who purchased 98% of the Hawaiian island of Lanai for $300 million. He didn't just buy a beach. He bought the town, the local utility company, the roads, the water supply, and the hotels. At this scale, you are essentially buying a small town and acting as its CEO and shadow mayor. The logistics here are staggering. Ellison launched a hydroponic farming company to supply the island, heavily invested in a local airline to control how people get on and off the island, and renovated the entire civic infrastructure. At level 5, you are no longer escaping the world. You are engineering your own mini-economy. You control the jobs, the supply chains, and the real estate market. The people who live there are essentially living inside your corporate ecosystem. It is absolute, terrifying control over a massive piece of geography. Level 6. The sovereign mega project. But what do you do when you have billions of dollars? You want an island, but nature didn't put one in the exact spot you want. You play God. You build it yourself. We are talking about projects costing hundreds of millions, often billions of dollars. This is the realm of state-backed billionaires and Middle Eastern royalty. To build an artificial island, like the Palm Jumeirah or the World Islands in Dubai, you have to dredge millions of tons of sand from the ocean floor. You have to blast rock from mountains to build a massive outer breakwater, just to stop the ocean waves from washing your new island back into the sea. At level 6, you aren't just a real estate owner. You are terraforming the planet. You dictate exactly what shape the land is, where the beaches go, and who is allowed in your airspace. But it is an endless war against nature. Artificial islands constantly settle and erode. Maintaining the shape of the land requires ongoing dredging and millions of dollars in annual engineering, just to keep the sea from reclaiming what you built. It is the ultimate display of financial dominance over the physical world. Level 7. The floating state. The absolute pinnacle of island ownership isn't attached to the ocean floor at all, because a physical island, no matter how big or expensive, has one fatal flaw. It is trapped in one place. It is subject to local taxes, local governments, and the rising sea levels. So the true elite abandon the dirt entirely. Level 7 is the sovereign floating gigayacht. We are talking about vessels over 160 meters long that cost upward of $500 million to $700 million to build. Ships like the Azam or the Eclipse. These aren't boats, they are floating cities. They carry their own attack submarines. They have onboard surgical theaters with medical staff. They possess military-grade missile defense systems and anti-paparazzi laser shields. They have multiple helipads, allowing the owner to commute to the mainland without ever docking the vessel. Why is this the ultimate level of the island game? Because it moves. If a local government changes its tax laws, or a geopolitical conflict breaks out, a level 7 floating island pulls its anchor and relocates to international waters. It is the ultimate expression of extreme wealth. A self-sustaining world that brings its borders with it. It answers to no nation, no law, and no schedule but its own. Every other real estate market in the world sells you square footage. The private island market sells you the only thing that actually matters to the ultra-wealthy: total isolation and absolute control. A guy at level 2 and a guy at level 7 are both trying to do the exact same thing. They are trying to draw a line in the sand that nobody else is allowed to cross. One is fighting a losing battle against a rusted generator, and the other is floating away from the rules of society entirely. If this breakdown was useful, hit subscribe. See you in the next one.